America has a youth mental health crisis. Children deserve an education that meets their specific needs. Yet when families ask to simply know when what their children have access to, or may wish to put guardrails on material for children of certain ages, they are pilloried in the public square. Such public flagellation is intended to not only extract a pound of flesh from the perpetrator, but to send a message to any other parent with similar reservations. Speak up, and the mob will come for you too. Far too many schools keep families at arm's length, which could not come at a worse time. Kids would benefit if the adults in their lives work together in their best interest.
我觉得很多时候你去做对的事情，反而你会遇到很多，就像他讲的前面说，如果你把真的对的事情讲出来的时候，也会有暴民，对不对？
But families are now considered adversaries, not even entitled to basic information about their children. In Wisconsin, one school district's teacher training session stated parents are not entitled to know their kids' identities. That knowledge must be earned. My organization has documented over 1,000 districts across the country with parental exclusion policies, which state that families don't have a right to know their child's gender identity in a taxpayer-funded school. And finally, it is not evil to want to be involved in your child's education. Every time a parent is falsely accused of wanting to ban a book because of reasonable concerns about subject matter appropriateness, neighbors are pitted against each other based on dishonest premises. This is a deliberate attempt to demonize parents and to chill both their speech and activism. 20 years ago, if a 6-year-old went to school and talked about sex, teachers would assume that that child was being abused. In 2023, children are not only learning about sex at school, but are being told to keep secrets from their families as well. Please stop mocking parents. Please stop name-calling. Please listen to the families who want their children to learn basic grammar rather than be policed on pronouns, who want their children to read at grade level and not taken out of class for political rallies, who want their young children's innocence to be preserved for a few years longer than an activist academic might insist.
Thank you for this opportunity to address you this morning. I am Cameron Samuels, a student from Katy, Texas, and I use gender-neutral pronouns they, them. I'm the executive director of Students Engaged in Advancing Texas. Not only
所以讲中文比较容易啊，中文那个人字的他，同时可以说男或女，是吧？就是他，就是那个他，一个人字旁的，又可以当男或女，这个就他们希望被这样称呼。
Schools censor books, but our state. Students and I introduced amendments with senators to book ban bills for accountability and non-discrimination. And since everything is bigger in Texas, we lead the nation for book bans. Censorship impacts our futures. Students deserve to be decision makers. Censorship is undemocratic.
I confess I'm a little confused.
鸟蛋的，他是给小朋友看啊，学生怎么会自己决定这件事情呢？我跟你们讲，如果你们国中的时候就自己决定哪些书可以看，哪些书不能看，你会不会看一些18禁的书？国中的时候，我觉得这个有点扯。你有判断力吗？我们没有那个判断力，我们未成年啊那时候。
And I appreciate the argument that our discussion that we've been having, but for me it's a little too conceptual or I don't know, metaphysical or theological or whatever you want to call it. I want to try to understand what you're asking.
对，我听不懂在讲什么。
Let's take 2 books that have been much discussed.
鸟蛋的前面讲那么多，根本在讲什么，对不对？阿北一定也觉得到底要讲什么事情，他后面就讲说，我想看他插慢，是不是？他的意思就是说，我想他合法看。
The first one is called
并非所有男孩都是蓝色的。哎呦
And I will quote from it. Close quote. All boys aren't blue. The second is
他讲了
And I will quote.
我看一下他内容是什么，包含露骨的性描述。
All boys aren't.
哎呦
The second is another much discussed book. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's called Genderqueer. Okay? Let me read an excerpt from that. Quote, end quote. Now,
不方便讲啊，一定是蛮露骨的，就是在小朋友还不知道、还不懂、还没有那个判断能力的时候，有些事情就是需要等他们成熟的时候，慢慢让他们了解，然后判断能力才去用。如果他还不懂的时候，他以为这个就是对的。比如说呢，同学摸鸟鸟啊，这样子对不对？因为看了这本书，同学开始摸鸟鸟，互相一直摸鸟鸟。你是那个书如果这样子描述的话，它看起来有点像啊。
Mr. Secretary.What are you asking us to do? Are you suggesting that only librarians should decide whether the 2 books that I just referenced should be available to kids?
Is that kids, what the fuck, no. Man?
Okay. Tell me what you're saying.
Well, First of all, there's this.
Don't give me a speech. Tell me what you're asking me to do.
With all due respect, Senator, the words you spoke are disturbing, especially coming out of your mouth is very disturbing. But what I would also tell you that we're not advocating for kids to read porn, to Senator Booker's point.
What are you advocating for?
We are advocating for parents, random parents, not to have the ability, under the guise of keeping kids safe, to try and challenge the world view of every single manner on these issues.
鸟蛋的嘞，怎么可能呢？他讲话有点太瞎了吧？要是我就问你们。如果我们自己从小的电视上面演的都是男跟男的，女跟女的，那小朋友就会看到就觉得很正常啊，好像都应该这样子。他的意思就是说这样子是 OK 的呢，我觉得这样不 OK 呢，不然我们就不用男生女生啊，上帝创造就有男跟女嘛。我不会去排斥任何那种不同性别的朋友们，但是我觉得因为就是有男有女，所以一开始的时候我们这样子创造的应该要遵循这一个生物界的循环 right 为主。如果我们生下来为什么有男有女，就是要能繁殖的。如果这个东西推广变男男女女，那我们就要绝种，对不对
You're getting conceptual game.
I'm not getting conceptual.
Well,
I'm saying
yes,
that.
you are. Yes, you are. Because I want to know what you're recommending.
太扯了吧。
It sounds to me like what some of you are saying. The librarians should decide who gets to see that book.
I'm saying when individual parents are allowed to make a decision of where that line is, and To Kill a Mockingbird, which involves a rape scene, should that book be pulled from our libraries?
Yeah.
I think it becomes a slippery
Well, I
slope.
think you ought to think about it a little bit.
如果是有一些谋杀很夸张的18禁的谋杀的，确实应该要下架啊。小朋友有些事情就是先不能让他去看啊，不然为什么要分级嘞？不要分级，国小生就直接看18禁的 R 片吗？然后上学的时候以为这是正常的，然后过去一直问女同学，就是这个就是明明就是不对。如果他有小孩，我觉得这个阿伯应该就说好，那你儿子我每天给你看这个，你受得了
Bit more before you come here.
I've thought about
If you're
Senator.
going to propose something, you ought to be able, in 30 seconds, to be able to explain what
Senator,
you're asking us to do.
Senator,
Ms. Kelly, what do you understand? Well, let me skip you for a second. Mr. Cameron, tell me what you're proposing.
It's pronounced mix.
Mix? Is that how would you like me to refer to you?
Senator, your definition of sexual is synonymous with LGBTQ identity.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you to tell me you read those two excerpts.
Genderqueer.
Do you think that, are you asking that only librarians and not parents have any say in whether minors can read those books? Is that what you're saying?
Genderqueer has never been in my school library, so it's never been banned.
Well, suppose it was. Should it be up just to the librarian, or should parents have a say?
There should be facilitation of collaboration between students,
parents
and
have a say?
educators. Parents should be working with students and educators to be making decisions because students
All right.
are
And who decides ultimately? The librarian, or do you take a vote, or who takes the vote?
book review committees in the community in my school district.
但我觉得至少他们都还蛮有礼貌的啦，对啊，就我觉得这是一点，也算是比较理性的沟通这件事情，能理解这位弟弟的想法，因为他会觉得说他希望有更多人能认识他的性向，所以他才不会被误解，他是希望这样子，但是我们不是要打压他们，会觉得我们能接受他的不一样，但是我们对小朋友的教育我们必须要有一个生物学来讲健康的教育，对吧？比较男跟女的教育来去做。
On a committee to decide?
There are committees.
Okay. Well, I'm asking you, how do we decide whether the two books that I just referenced should be available in the library? What would you, if you were running things, what would you do?
All Boys Aren't Blue, the scene you mentioned, is about sexual abuse.
性虐待的的书吗？他说并非所有场景都是性虐待的，所以刚才那一段省略的就是代表说这一本书并非所有男孩都是蓝色的，里面是有讲到性虐待的书，然后应该是男那一种，然后男的，然后还要给国小生看吗？我跟你讲，如果他放在我们学校的书库，我们国小时候就会看到，因为我们以前有图书馆课，对吧？图书馆课有时候大家就会看一些很奇怪的书，因为正常的书大家都在看嘛，然后男生有些人就会这样子，你知道那个有些，我靠，这个好害羞。我讲的你们有经历过吧？以前有图书课啊。
I know what it's about.
It's not
What would you do in terms of making the books available? Would you say anybody can see them, or they have to be in a special session?
Students who do not read books like All Boys Aren't Blue cannot learn what is appropriate.
I understand that.
They cannot learn
I understand, but none of you want to
abuse.
answer my question. You come here and you say censorship is bad, and of course it's bad. But the obvious
鸟蛋的，你不用看那个，我也知道什么是虐待啊！你被打很痛拜托，被打很痛，那就是有点就是不对的啊，是不是？ 如果是适当管，现在不提倡打，对，以前我们小时候是打，现在不连这个都不适应，现在是理性沟通了。
Responses, okay, you heard the books we're talking about. Okay, we're not talking about Catcher in the Rye. So
麦
tell
田
me
捕
what
手
you want, who gets to decide. And all
麦
I've
田
heard
捕手
is the librarian. And parents have nothing to do with it. And if that's your response, what planet did you just parachute in from?
Parents, Senator.
Or what country, more appropriate? This is not China.
Parents, Senator, for all due respect, parents absolutely have a
不要
say.
这样子，在中国这种书绝对禁的啦。
My parents were immigrants, came to this country. We never checked out books without our parents seeing what books we were reading. They encouraged us to read
Mr.
books.
Secretary, I understand this is good for your politics back home.
It's got nothing to do
but
with my
I'm not-
politics. My
no,
bill
of
is
course
passed.
It does.
My
It
bill is
has
passed.
everything to do with your politics.
I'm here to-
But you came here with a problem, and I'm trying to understand the solution, and you don't have one.
We solved the solution.
我觉得他说他们以前阅读的时候，我们的父母都不会去管，只会鼓励你阅读，不能以他小时候20-30年前的时候的标准去用，因为这个社会一直在进步，所以我们会发觉，我们会慢慢立法，因为一开始法律都没很多嘛，因为没一开始都是从零开始。那你现在社会进步的时候，就会对某些事情这样子好像对人有点影响，所以我们要设一个规定，正常吧？公司也是这样，慢慢用，或者是都在慢慢建立起来的，这样讲也有点奇怪。
We solved the solution in
Other than to
Illinois.
tell us that we don't agree with you, we'll be on the wrong side of history.
We solved the problem in Illinois. We fixed it because we
Well, there
passed
are
laws
others
that
you
make-
could work on.
Well, that's why
I'm
I'm
out
here
of
to help.
time. Thank
I'm
you,
help-
Mr. Chairman.
To help other states make these decisions.